Hi everybody. What I want to do is I want to show you the exact same project that we are doing for our lab using ArcMap, except I'm going to set it up in using QGIS just so you guys can see the difference between the two or the similarities. I'm not going to get as detailed with the QGIS version, but we'll set up this mapping environment and do some of the same things we just did with the ArcMap session, but I'm using QGIS. Okay, so hold on, here we go. So to add data, now with QGIS you do not have to map or connect to a folder. It automatically looks everywhere and gives you access to everything. Now you can limit that. All right, so here right away I can find my York Township data. All right, so what I can do is I can shift just like we did to bring in the data layers, but in this particular case I'm going to drag them and drop them. Now the difference between ArcMap and QGIS is that it doesn't have that layer intelligence, so it just brings them in as they're stored on disk, so you'll have to shuffle them around. It's kind of cumbersome, but it's pretty easy. You just drag the layers where you want them, put them in the order. Okay, so that's one difference, is that QGIS doesn't have that built-in intelligence that puts polygons on the bottom, lines next, and then points on top. It'll bring them in as it'll put them in the top spot in order as you bring them in, so you'll have to shuffle them around. All right, so we'll go to the York Township and we will change its symbology to that yellow with the gray outline. To get a better feel here, we'll come over to color. We'll change that to beige and come down to the color for the outline, and we will change that to gray, and we will change the thickness of the line and then press OK. So I'll turn these other layers off so you can see York Township. Colors are kind of different. They're not exactly the same, so if you're using one or the other, you'll have to decide what colors are best. You'll have some background noise today. We have a lot of trucks and stuff on our road. All right, so there's the York Township, just like we did it in ArcMap, but this is QGIS. Now we're going to do that parcel analysis that we did with the appraiser's data. So I'll make York parcels visible. I'll right click and open up its attribute table. And here, just like in ArcMap, we have the attribute table, and we're going to use the APR data to make our map. All right, I'll close the attribute table and I'll double click on York parcels, and we're going to come up here to, at the very top, we're going to select graduated colors, and it automatically gives us a color to use. We're going to go over here and choose our APR value. The one difference, I believe, okay, well, we got to classify right down here in this button right here. Remember, in ArcMap that is add all values. Well, in QGIS it's classify. So we have units of classification here, just like we did before. But we're going to go to the 10 classifications. So now we have 10 assessed value classifications. Now you notice these numbers look totally different than they did in ArcMap. Well, we have to change how we're looking at the data in QGIS. If you notice, mode says equal interval. We're going to change that to natural breaks and then apply. Actually, we don't need to apply. It already did it. The numbers are a little bit different. The mathematical way that QGIS did it compared to ArcMap is a little bit different, but the process is still the same. And in terms of the legend of changing that legend text to say what you want, you can still do that. We're going to do less than, let's just say $30,000, okay, for the top one. And on the bottom one, we'll say greater than $14 million, all right? So changing that legend, just like we did in ArcMap, is exactly the same. So we can apply, and it applies it to our map just like it did in ArcMap. I'll close that, and then we can expand that out and see our legend. All right, so that shows you the parcel data that we did, and we're using QGIS right now. All right, so we'll turn off parcels, and now we're going to go over to the floodplain, and I'm going to turn the floodplain layer on, double click for its properties, and we are going to go up here to the top and select categorized, and we are going to choose our flood zone attribute, and then we're going to come down here to the classify button and add those classifications in. This one right here that doesn't have any text, you remember in ArcMap, this one says all other values. Well, QGIS, it doesn't say that, but that's what this particular symbol means. So you can just turn that off. Now for the X zones, remember it's not a flood zone, so we are going to make that transparent. And we're going to transparent fill, and we're not going to have any outlines, so we're going to make that transparent fill and click OK. All right, so you see this zone X now is transparent. You can't see it because it's not a flood zone. Now for the A and the AE flood zone, you can hold your shift button and right click and change the color and get both of those 100-year flood zones at the same time. So we're going to click this blue, click OK. Now we still have the outlines, but if you hit shift, keep those two selected, and double click, now you can come up to simple fill, go down to the color of the stroke and make that transparent and hit OK. And now you have the 100-year flood zone like we did in ArcMap. Now for the 500-year flood, now here's kind of the difference between QGIS and ArcMap, is that the palettes are totally different. So you don't get a lot of those pre-built palettes, but you get a lot of palettes for colors and symbols, okay? So you'd have to go in and really find the palette for like the flood zone. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to choose this blue dotted pattern for our flood, our 500-year flood zone. And I'm going to go ahead, since they're dots, I want to give it some kind of a boundary, so I'm going to leave the outlines for those on there. All right, so we'll hit apply, and it now shows us our flood zones. I'm going to turn the York Township on so you can see that. All right, so pretty much just like ArcMap, exactly the same basic process. Now we're going to go to the streams. We're going to turn the streams on, double click that, and remember we did just a simple blue line for the streams because there's no category data to show them in their class of stream. So we're just going to come down and we're going to choose a blue line, click OK, and then that changes all those to blue lines. All right. Then the last one is the roads. So we're going to double click the roads, bring up its property, and we are going to go to categorize data, and we're going to choose that speed limit field that was in our attribute table, which is right there, and we are going to classify the data. And there you go, we have our same speed limits. We're going to turn the null data off, and we're going to double click on the 55 mile an hour, and we're going to click simple line here, and change that to, oh, wait a minute, I did that wrong. Yeah, we're going to change that to red, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger by moving this up, and we're going to click OK. So now we have a thick red line. For the 45 mile an hour, remember we just did a standard black line, so I'll come down here and find a simple black line and click OK. For 25 mile an hour, it's a little thinner line. I think there's a hairline down here somewhere. Wait a minute. Let's select simple black line and change its width down to that. Makes it a little thinner. Yeah, it's a little thinner. And then for the bike path, we wanted a dotted line. We can choose this dashed black one, but we can come in here and change its color over to gray and then hit OK. Then you have your legend set up, so hit OK and then turn that layer on so you can see the roads. So basically almost the same exact setup with ArcMap, other than some idiosyncrasies. Now for the contours, basically the same thing that we did in ArcMap. We'll just go to categorized and choose our elevation field and click classify, and all of those elevations show up. We'll turn off the null data, and then we'll click OK, and then if you want to, and basically it draws them just kind of like it did in ArcMap. So not much difference between ArcMap and QGIS. You just have to get used to the tools because they are different. Let's take a look at the tools. We got a lot of tools up on the top. We got the same kind of a menu system, and then we have the taskbar up here, and then we have all of these tools to do different functions, and most of them are exactly the same as ArcMap. They just might have a different looking icon. But you notice this band right here, this toolbar right here, this is for the satellite imagery analysis that I do, and so I have that pasted right on my menu system. But the look and feel is pretty much like ArcMap. It acts like ArcMap, it looks like ArcMap, but like I said, a few subtle differences. Alright, so that is an introduction to what QGIS is in setting up the same data that we're using for Lab. Alright, we'll see you guys later.